Hey everybody, I am Taylor and I'm the Stargate Guy, where I talk to you about everything and anything Stargate. So this video is a short version of the live stream conversation that we had. The live streams are the first Sunday of every month at 10 a.m. Pacific time in the US. So here's just the theory that we were talking about, as well as a few of the comments relating to the theory. You can get the entire thing at a link at the end of this video. Hope you enjoy. So politics in Stargate. So what really brought this on is several comments that were given on one of my recent videos, The Go Older Idiots, where people got rather political, and I was rather surprised. But a lot of people said things like, keep politics out of Stargate, or don't sully Stargate with politics, or anything like that, which was really surprising on multiple levels. And one of which is that the role of politics itself is so integral to Stargate. They are inseparable. There is politics all the time in Stargate. It happens all the freaking time, you know, during every single season, starting with season 1 of SG1 and continuing through the last season of Destiny, and even into like the Arc of Truth and everything. Politics is part of Stargate, period. Okay? It's something that strongly develops the show later on, especially when getting involved with the IOA and that kind of thing, and the NID and all sorts of different things comes from politics. So we start off with basically Senator Kinsey. Now, Senator Kinsey, a lot of people hate Senator Kinsey, and he's made out to be a big villain of the show, and he later on becomes a rather large villain of the show. But he starts off as a senator. Now, for those of you outside the United States, now one second, I'm going to get to question stuff a little bit later, but hold on. Now, for those of you outside of the United States, a quick rundown on American politics. There are two gigantic political parties. There are the Republicans and there are the Democrats. The Republicans are the more conservative kind. Those are traditionally the more conservative kind. Those are the folks overall. Conservative is really just a good word for them. And then the Democrats tend to be more liberal. Those are the two big parties, and those dominate the government politics, both at a local as well as a federal level. And there are a Senate. There's a Senate. Each state has 2 Senate representatives, and they have different subcommittees and everything else, and they're the kind of civilian oversight of the entire government, including the military. Well, the military is more the president's deal, but there are committees and stuff that look into funding and that kind of thing. You can really go down the rabbit hole as far as American politics go, but that's the very basics. There's also a whole bunch of other different political parties. There's the Libertarian Party, there's the Green Party, there's even a Communist Party. I'm kind of surprised about that. All kinds of different things. And there's a Nazi Party even, which is really surprising to me, but well, you know, whatever floats your boat. So that's the very basics of American politics. And there's the president, and there's the Senate and the House of Representatives, and then there's the judicial branch, which, you know, actually makes rulings over the laws of the Supreme Court, that kind of thing. So you have these two major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. So in American politics, it kind of ebbs and flows as far as what political party and what philosophical ideas are really controlling policy that is created at that time. So, sorry, you know, I'll tell the Americans out there, you know this stuff. If you don't, then you need to go back to, you know, high school and retake government class. But there's a lot that goes into politics in the American governmental system, and it's all intertwined is a good word for it. So, starting off with Senator Kinsey. Now, Senator Kinsey in season 1, he was in charge of the Senate committee to, sorry, this is for the rocking of the camera. This is all handheld on my phone. So Senator Kinsey was in charge of the oversight committee. He was the one who, sorry, I'm just reading a comment about tacos from last month's live stream. Anyway. So he was over the oversight committee that helps deal with funding for different governmental top secret kind of projects. And obviously with the SGC, with the development of that, it costs a fortune in order to run it, even though it is part of the
military, and the military gets a bunch of funding. The majority of the funding, I believe, or the biggest chunk of funding goes to the military. Even with that, it costs millions and millions of dollars to keep the Stargate program running. And just the energy involved to use to open a wormhole, that's a tremendous amount of power. And that power has a drain on the system, and the government gets billed for that. I mean, you have companies that help generate power. They're using it, the government is using it. And so they, as they should, they get sent a gigantic bill, as well as you got, the funding for all the different computers and for all these different things. And yes, I do mean billions of dollars, millions of dollars to like open, just to do the wormhole thing on a regular basis. Overall, billions and billions of dollars. It's a huge amount of money. And so, Senator Kinsey, rightfully so, doing his duty as an elected representative, wanted to know where the hell this money was going. I totally get that. That's part of his job. Oh, hey, Gary. So, he shows up at the SGC, and he's already, had his mind made up, after he got briefed into what the project was, that kind of thing. He's obviously a very religious figure, very Christian. I would kind of put him as an evangelical Christian, although it's not strictly stated as to what exactly, his philosophy is, but he is a Christian. And that plays a huge role into his personal beliefs and politics. And he seems to run a large majority of his political platform calling upon a belief in God and the role of God in politics and in America. So Senator Kinsey kind of shows up at the SGC to do his due diligence and his song and dance and kind of hear them out, even though he's already, had his mind made up. And that right there starts the real significance of politics in Stargate. Before that, you had the calls between General Hammond and the president, but that was not really a gigantic thing. Kinsey showing up and wanting to shut down the program, that was a big thing at the end of season one. And he did effectively shut down the program. He did not approve any additional funding. And it was, so end of show, right? Except it was signed on for 2 seasons, and we can't have that. So SG-1 went off world, and they blew up a couple of Apophysis ship, and that, tend to show that, hey, maybe the billions of dollars in order to, save the planet might be worth it. Okay. And Kinsey was kind of overturned, and, the funding kept going. But that was just the start of a very long thread. This is one that really, we'll get there, Richard. We'll get there. I'm just talking about the role of politics in general in Stargate, and we'll get to specific questions. Anyway, so that really started a very long thread, and funding really seems to be how politics is involved in Stargate, because they receive a lot of their. You're welcome. They receive a lot of their funding by approval of different Senate committees, which are all civilians. So, and on occasion, the figures change. Kinsey was a long-running one, because not only was he in charge of of that committee with the funding, but he also got put in charge of another committee to oversee and kind of be in charge of civilian intelligence agencies similar to the NID. And no one really knows what NID really means, but it's in the Apocrypha, but canon-wise, it's not official what it means. But NID, and which had its own kind of rogue agents in there, and it's very interesting. Yeah, it's NID's interesting. I've been meaning to do a video on the NID for a while now. But so he gets himself put in charge of the NID, and before he's officially appointed, he tries to get the SGC into the control of the NID so that, when he received his posting, he would be effectively in charge of the SGC, because he'd be the one that ultimately would approve funding, not approve funding, would say, hey, these people are doing illegal activities, we need to shut them down, or these people are abusing their power or whatever, and lies but off downward in order to get control. Kinsey's character loves control. And yes, that would be a good way of identifying. Sorry. Orotakawa Tenga. I'm horrible at names. But he just mentioned that, really Kinsey is a pseudo Christian, meaning he was Christian church attendee, but he was too narcissistic of being an actual Christian. That is a good description of him. Thank you very much. Um, but, Kinsey absolutely loved power. And that is very plain. And he wanted to control the Stargate because the Stargate had a whole lot of power. It had more power than him, is really what it came down to. And so he really wanted to get control of it to control Pandora's box, okay, to use his analogy. Now, in his search for power, political power, that brings us to him becoming the vice president with President Hayes. President Hayes. So to go with Kinsey, we can safely identify Kinsey as being on the conservative spectrum. He would probably belong to the Republican Party. That is not outright confirmed, but given his statements, largely on both sides of the spectrum of the political world, references to God and that kind of thing, and is used on both sides of the spectrum. On the conservative side of it, it tends to be used a little bit more. And with Kinsey's actions on wanting to limit government, of wanting to decrease spending, on wanting to, well, I guess that I'm trying not to really go into it too much and offend people and that kind of thing, get involved in modern politics. But it seemed like Kinsey was more on the conservative side of things, and he wanted to limit government, is a good way to say that. So we can assume that Hayes, from the get go, is also a member of the same party. It is extremely rare, as in like unheard of, for a president and a vice president to run for that office who are not on the same political party. That hasn't happened, since like the first one or two presidents. And we had a completely different system back then. But anyway, getting off topic. So Hayes is still a member of the same political party as Kinsey and has similar political views, but is not as extreme as Kinsey. He does not, have that divine. Yeah, this is really hard to put into words. He does not have that sense of God playing such a huge role in politics as Kinsey does. He does have some conservative values and belief systems, but he's a lot more chill about it. He's a lot more friendly in his belief. He's willing to work with people, whereas Kinsey does not want to work with people who just wants to control people, which ultimately proves to be his downfall. And so, for example, during the Anubis attack, when Kinsey was he was wanting to get off world, and he was in the SGC, and he wanted to control power, and he wanted to get off world and protect his own butt, he got fired by President Hayes, which we were all very glad to see, most likely. I can't think of a single person who like, oh man, Kinsey got fired. Like man, that's horrible. He was such a good guy. I haven't heard that from somebody. You might have that belief. I don't know. But Hayes then approves what was going on with the SGC and ultimately has the last say as the president of the United States and of the head of the military. But that kind of changed. He kind of limited his power when the SGC, when the United States military decided to bring in other major nations in on the secret of the Stargate, as well persuaded by the Asgard. They wanted to work with more of a planet rather than one nation on it. Although they like working with the SGC and we're homies. So that's when they let in countries like China and UK and France and Germany and some of the more bigger political and military nations on the planet. They did not let in smaller countries that do not have a lot of political say on a global scale or did not have a lot of military resources on a global scale. For example, there wasn't a representative from Haiti sitting on the board, or I don't know, Nigeria or Belize. We're talking about gigantic major nations: Russia, China, Germany, France, UK. United States. The guys with a lot of global influence and a lot of global influence politically and militarily, which, say what you will about that. Personally, I think that was kind of a good move to kind of open it up. If you open it up to absolutely everybody in the UN, you will just open up a gigantic bunch of words. A bunch of words, bunch of worms. Wow, I have a hard time speaking today. But anyway, later on, with the funding of the SGC, the funding of the SGC was going to get cut down to like 3% of what it was. With the Goa World being gone, the people who were controlling the funding understood that less money was needed because the whole world is not at threat of outside invasion, even though the ORI was starting to become a thing, and they wanted to pull back a whole bunch of funding from the SGC and give it to the Atlantis expedition to fight the Wraith. And what really happened is that there was a compromise being made that would include the IOA, the International Oversight Advisory, to kind of help control the SGC and the Atlantis expedition. And in return, the SGC kind of got their funding. But now we have international civilian committee politics being in charge of the SGC. And Richard Woolsey, who started off as an informant for Kinsey and a fact finder for Kinsey, now takes a more active role. He even spends a year, a couple of years being in charge of the Atlantis expedition, and really, politics, international politics at this point, not just U.S. government politics, international politics, ends up controlling the SGC. And we have the IOA, and we have the different people in the IOA who have their own political agendas. There are some people who want power. There are some people who want to bring it public. There are some people who want to keep it absolutely secret and who want to get technology. There's all these political ideas and philosophies at an international level governmenting what happens at the SGC and the Atlantis expedition. Okay, so we went from very little, just the president being in charge of this, and then goes to senates and committees in the United States, and then we went from American politics to international politics. Okay, so that is what tells the military kind of what to do is politics and civilians. On grand scheme of things, when it comes to specific orders or something, the generals and everything take that over, and they do good work. But we also have other things spring up. We have the trust springs up. We have the committee spring up. Okay, different smaller groups with their own political agendas. Now, the trust, they're actually kind of like terrorists, really. Like they wanted to get technology for themselves and for the government to help, for the planet to help keep it safe. Okay, that was their whole thing. And they were going to do that by any means necessary. Then we had the committee, which was a whole bunch of very wealthy business people who wanted to get alien technology to produce better products and to make more money. Okay, so just from the storyteller's perspective, we have the writers, the directors, and that kind of thing creating stories where they are vilifying some certain political points of view. And overall, there's tend to be more on the conservative end of things, or the extreme conservative end of things. Not, the middle of the road people like President Hayes, but the more extreme people like Kinsey, the extreme capitalism of the committee, the people who, just had no morals about making any money, which is not the majority of capitalists. They're a small portion there of the extreme people. And so we really don't have a lot of political figures in Stargate who are on the more liberal spectrum of things. We did start to get in on that more with the IOA and with a couple of the smaller characters there. Not so much Woolsey. Woolsey, was more of a following orders kind of thing, and then he realized that you can't really do that in real life. But the IOA played a huge role in Stargate later on. Major decisions were up to the IOA. Now, they chose not to make decisions, but to bicker about it until a decision had to be made by a person on the ground, giving them a scapegoat in case the decision did not work out. then they can say, well, it was that person, who made that decision. That wasn't us. Okay, but if they did well, then the IOA would go like, oh yeah, well we're in charge of that guy. Politics played a huge role in Stargate. Is all I'm saying. So to say keep politics out of Stargate or don't sell you Stargate with politics is ridiculous because there was always a thread during the entire show, and not just SG-1, but Atlantis. We saw a lot of IOA involvement in Atlantis, as well as Destiny. Whenever we went to Earth, it was you're dealing with the military and you're dealing with politics, and politics followed the Destiny on board. A representative of the IOA was on board, and she brought her political agendas with her. So I'm sorry, guys, but there's always politics in Stargate because you're dealing with a show who deals with the military, and where there's military, there's politics. At least in America. In some countries, not so much, but in America, there is. So, no big theory or anything about that. I just wanted to point out the role of politics in Stargate. Politics governs Stargate. Sorry. For better or for worse. A lot of times it's for worse. But that's what it is. And we might as well recognize it for what it is. So let's go to the comments here. I am way behind on the comments. You guys have been talking to each other, which is awesome. Again, I have a tablet down here, so I'm going to be looking down. But let's start up here. Wow, I am way behind. All the way up at the top here. Let's see here. I'll be Tex. What do you think about the Yoronda episode? How is it possible that Nazis go to other planets? So the Yorondan episode was the one, if I'm recalling right, where SG-1 shows up, or really they get people who kill themselves against the Iris, and then they get a message from a planet who is trying to find some help they're trying to find heavy water for their shields, and in return, SG-1 can get a whole bunch of different technology, a lot of which is military technology, which Tilk and Jack experienced. But then later on, it was found out that the people that the Yorondans that they would be dealing business with had a lot of values that were similar to the Nazis of Germany during World War II. Yes, and they were fighting the breeders. Thank you, Richard. People who, believe that you could have kids with whoever you want, and, they don't have to be of a specific set of looks and appearances and that kind of thing, different genetic traits. So, Jack basically made almost a unilateral decision of we're not doing business with these people. So, what do I think about them? I think that it is a good story. I think that it is a good way to bring up the question of, do we do business with people who do not have values similar to us, or who do not value life as we do, who have very different morals than we do, ones in which we directly fought against not that long ago and thousands of people died for? That's really the question. Personally, I'm glad that the decision was made to let them go about their business and to not do business with them, not trade with them. I'm a fan of that because that would kind of undermine everything that we fought for and that people died for 2 generations ago. And yeah, it was a great episode, very well done. Renee did a great job being an actor in that episode. But I personally, since you're asking my opinion, I personally believe that we made a good decision. Moving on here. Blue Skipper still never ate a taco. Dude, eat a taco. That goes back to last month's live stream. We got on the huge tangent with tacos, and it was kind of funny. But anyway, Dragonware 44, greetings and salutations, everyone. Hey man, how you doing? Long-time subscriber. Dow FAQ, hey, actually not working for a stream for once. Come try it. Awesome. Welcome to the party. I'm glad to see you. Man, there's a whole bunch of people on here that I recognize from comments and stuff. This is awesome. Um, by the way, I'm absolutely horrible at names, so you're gonna have to forgive me. Um, Reneus Nesbit. Yep, there's a lot of politics in Stargate, especially with the Russia and China. Yes, there's a huge thing that went on with international politics with the United States and Russia, and the United States and Russia and China, and that whole triangle that is very similar to real life. And we got to remember here that I think one of the reasons why they told the political story like they did is because within the United States at that time period, the majority of politics at that time were held by people who were part of a conservative party. So we had President George W. Bush in office during the time period that Stargate was playing largely, and there was a large Republican majority in the Senate and within the House of Representatives. So a lot of American politics at that time tended to be rather conservative, and a lot of the policies that came out. So I think that's one of the reasons why they went more talking about conservative politics than liberal politics in relation to the SGC is because that's what was going on in real life, and this is about the SGC that's going on in real life at real time. So I think that's one of the reasons why they went that way. But I got off topic. That's very easy to do. It's easy for me to get off topic, even when Sarah's not here. Graham Telford, hello from north of the wall. Howdy, from north of the wall. Do you mean Canada? Do we have a wall there? What? I don't know. But hi, Graham. Nice to see you. More talk about tacos. Uh, uh, or Takawatenga. Kinsey was on the Senate Appropriation Committee. Yes, thank you very much. The Senate Appropriation Committee. I was forgetting the name of that. But yeah, Senate Appropriations Committee. Yes. Do. Alistair61, hello all. Hey, nice to see you again. Oh, James just popped up. Hi, James. Good to see you. Said hi to Gary, Mr. Bojangles. Hello. Man, a lot of hellos. Richard, yo, yo, yo. Brad Wheelock, I think he's going to cost billions a month around. Yep. Yeah, so the Dow FAQ, remember that Kinsey actually using the words false gods, referring to the gold, and use that a lot, in God and politics and that kind of thing. It was a very interesting character. And he was a huge hypocrite. Thank you, Dragon Warrior 44. Richard Hughes, hey, at the Stargate Guy, I hope that things are good with you. For the most part, yes, they are. Thank you very much for asking. Mr. Husker, 1996, in Eastern Europe, he would have whacked. Wait, in Eastern Europe, he would get whacked for asking too many questions, even though he was just doing his job. Just saying. Okay, that would have made for an interesting show. That I don't know. That is interesting. Like how politics would have changed the SGC if the SGC was in different countries. Like if it was set up originally in Russia or China or the UK or Germany, or an Eastern European nation. I don't know. That'd be interesting. Or like Brazil, the SGC that was run by Brazil. That'd be interesting. I don't know. How would Carnival play into effect there? I don't know. Yeah, it's just anyway, it's interesting to think about. Richard Hughes at the Stargate Guy. My invite to shoot a PS90 still stands. Ooh, yay. You just have to come to Palm Beach or Orlando. Man, I would love that. I have no idea when I'm going to be heading down there, but thank you for the invite. I like that. Dow FAQ, NID stands for Not Identified Division. That's interesting. Let's see here. Let's see here. The Apollo missions cost nearly $2 billion in the 60s, so in the 90s, that's a hell of a lot more. Yep, pointing out that even like today, people are pointing out God and references to God in politics. Yes. Mr. Husker 1996. UN was technically behind the IOA, I believe. Just like in real life, they do more of an oversight. Then boots on the ground are usually supplied by member states. Basically, yeah. I mean, I wasn't divulged to the whole of the UN that the SGC existed. So I don't know if it was controlled directly from the UN. I think what really happened is that the nations that were in on the Stargate project, that they are the ones who created the IOA. And yeah, so I don't know if it was strictly under the UN. I think it was just a separate thing that was created by the people who knew about the SGC. I don't know for sure, though. I think that's just my thought.